So if you're regularly in the gym, ideally you're following some sort of structured routine. Now the word routine is important here because to a large extent you need to be doing the same thing week after week, because ultimately you're looking for progress over time, and progress isn't going to happen if you keep doing completely different things every time you walk into the gym. So you need to have a routine of some sort. Now there's various ways of structuring your gym routine, but that's not the point of this video. I'm actually going to take a more zoomed out look and talk about periodization. Okay, so what is periodization? Periodization is where we systematically vary training intensity, volume, and exercise selection over time, okay, in order to promote long-term gains. It's a way of structuring your training in such a way that you maximize progress while minimizing the risk of injury and burnout. And there's a few ways of doing it. Now, this isn't an exhaustive list. There's plenty of approaches to this. I'm just going to give you a couple of examples. So, starting with linear periodization. Now, this is the simplest form of periodization. Progressively moving from one training phase to the next, and you're doing it quite smoothly, gradually shifting from hypertrophy, which is muscle building, to strength and maybe onto more power-focused movements. Generally, and we're talking very generally here, I'm talking in very broad strokes, each training phase would typically be around maybe 3 to 8 weeks, but it could be less, it could be more, and each phase doesn't need to be the same length either. Some things take longer than others. Some things simply can't be sustained for as long as others, so, the training blocks will vary in their length. Alongside linear periodization, you've got block periodization. We're still typically moving from hypertrophy through to strength and onwards to power, but where block periodization differs from linear is that with linear, it's like we're sort of turning a dial, gradually shifting from one phase to the next. And with block periodization, it's more like we're flicking a switch. So there's a sudden change in training intensity and volume as you move into the next phase. A third option, which can help keep things interesting and fresh if you like lots of variation in your training, is undulating periodization. Now, you can do this daily, where you shift your training intensity several times within the same week. That can seem a little chaotic for some people, and you need to be really following a strict program to get the most out of it. Alternatively, you can do weekly undulating periodization. So you have a light week, a medium week, and a heavy week. Different exercises, different intensity each week, and just keep cycling around. It keeps things nice and fresh. You've got a different focus every week, something new to get stuck into every week, and you can progress nicely. You can also do that bi-weekly, so switch it up every 2 weeks, which adds, a little more stability to your training. So yeah, lots of options. And as I said, not an exhaustive list, but if you want to avoid plateaus, reduce injury risk, and add in some different elements into your training, then you really need to look into some form of periodization if you're not already doing so.